On this special episode of Supercars Talk, I've got a retro race review, the 2003 Eastern Creek finale. So, while I was researching some information for another video, I was watching some retro races, and I thought, hey, why don't I do a retro race review? So we'll start off with one round that was actually, it's gone down in history. It is well remembered, the 2003 finale at Eastern Creek. I do say the finale because they did have a race there earlier on in the year. This was a two-race format over the weekend, a slightly longer race on the Sunday, slightly shorter race on the Saturday. It was a championship decider between Ambrose, Greg Murphy and Mark Skaife. Some little observations, before we get into the actual race review. Funnily enough, it's hard to remember. Lowndes was the lead driver at Tickford. I think it was Ford Performance Racing back then. They change names so often, it's sometimes hard to follow. But yeah, it's hard to remember that Lowndes was Ford's golden boy there for a few years, and with the factory team. This was Mark Larkham's last drive as a full-time driver. He obviously went on to just run his team, and now he's doing his TV stuff. Mark Winterbottom had just wrapped up the Super 2 Championship, and he was going on to take over that drive the next year. There was an interview with not Roland Dane but Derek Warwick about them just taking over the Briggs Motorsport team and it becoming Triple Eight for the next year. So this was before we had all of the Triple Eight domination. There was other, including Briggs's team. There was Perkins Motorsport, Gary Rogers Motorsport, Team Dynamic. Does anyone remember them? Lansvale Smash Repairs, of course, Mark Larkham's team, Team Brock, which was Paul Wheel Racing, and Paul Morris's team was still involved in this weekend. For all those people concerned about the, Gen 3 and Gen 2 running in the same season, this was an interesting one. Not quite as drastic changes, but we did see a bit of a mixed grid on there with the Holden teams especially, because HRT, they were running VY Commodores. These, I think by the end of the year, they were full VYs. At the start of the year, they might have been a little bit of a hybrid kind of thing. Gary Rogers, I'm pretty sure Tander ran a full VY for the whole year, while Jamie Wincup was in a VX for the whole year, I think. Team Brock ran VXs for the whole year. Kmart and Perkins were running a split system where they had one VY and one VX Commodore. So there was a lot of different model Commodores out there, especially, and because you still had a couple of AU Falcons kicking around. ProDrive UK was still trying to show Australians how we do it in supercars, and Tickford, or FPR at the time, Glenn Seaton had a special ProDrive UK version of the V8 engine in his car that did fail over the weekend. This was the first round that all the cars had to carry the Tiga camera. At the time, it was only forward facing. Now I think they face forward and back, so that the powers that be can review the footage. They can actually review the footage during the race now. I think at the time they actually had to grab the memory stick out of the car after the race so they could review any incidents after the race. Over the telecast, they actually discussed about Jason Bright going to Triple Eight. I do not recall those discussions at all. Maybe I should look into that a little bit more. And one thing about the telecast, the information was definitely not as good as what we get these days. One big thing, there was no totem down the side of the screen, so it was very, very, very hard to follow what was going on, and also the way it was chopped together, I suppose, with all the ad breaks, which is something that we don't have to deal with these days, unless you are watching on free-to-air. But you didn't get, kind of the constant updates of where everyone was all the time. And it made it really hard to follow where people were while there was pit stops going on. So for the racing, now we have been complaining about top 10 and top 15 shootouts over the last couple of years. This round had a top 33 shootout. Everybody went out and had their own run in the shootout. Thank God that wasn't part of the television package, because I would have fast forwarded anyway, because my God, imagine watching that now. Only 32 cars did start the race, as Speedy Thexton, if you don't know who he is, look it up. Quite an interesting character from around this time. He wasn't fast enough, so he didn't get to start. One of the reasons that the super license system is in place is this guy, more money than talent is definitely one way of describing Speedy Thexton. As for the championship showdown, it was an all HRT front row. Ambrose started off in 4th, and Greg Murphy was a distant 14th and a little bit struggling. Skaife got a really good jump off the start, possibly too good, because he got done for a jump start and got a drive-through penalty. Ambrose jumped from 4th to 2nd, which then when Skaife served his penalty, he just was in the lead and never headed for the rest of the day. And the other championship contender, Greg Murphy, got himself into a bit of mischief with Glenn Seaton, where he just kind of ran into the back of him. There was some reports at the time where Murphy blamed Seaton for it somehow. It didn't look like a brake check. Murph ended up getting a drive-through for it, ended up 24th in the standings and nowhere. Just definitely did not do his championship any help with that result. Ambrose was first in the race, obviously. Jason Bright second, Todd Kelly third, Russell Ingall 4th, and Steve Richards rounded out the top 5. Sunday, and this is where it all really kicked off. Now, the grid positions were set at this point from the finishing positions on the Saturday, so that meant Ambrose was on pole and Greg Murphy was supposed to start down the back. But Murph didn't actually start the race. Apparently he injured his back in the VB Challenge that morning. That was a thing where I think they were in Commodore and Falcon Utes, and they had to do like a Motorcana kind of thing, doing handbrakes and stuff. And apparently, I think it was when he ripped on the handbrake, he pulled a muscle in his back. There were questions at the time because they did have a drop round system this year, and he wasn't going to get enough points, so this would have been his round to drop anyway, so may as well sit out and not... it's all a bit... I don't know why he'd want to sit out anyway, but there was some, tinfoil hat stuff over what happened here. Murph did have back issues over the years though, so I think it's probably a little bit more genuine than, just sitting it out for the hell of it. Once again, Ambrose got a suspiciously good start. So did Russell Ingall actually, and there was a lot of rumours about the Stone Brothers car running traction control back in these days, and I can see why, going off those starts. Craig Lowndes punted Steve Richards off the road early on in the race with a late dive. Once again, Lowndes got away with it. Paul Morris actually overtook Skaife for 5th position early on in the race. For all those people who knock Paul Morris, he was a very good race car driver back in those days. We had a safety car period when Steve Johnson, Steve Ellery and Paul Wheel all found oil in turn 1 and all speared off together, narrowly missing each other. And of course, safety cars, everybody jumped straight into pit lane. After the safety car period, Skaife's car seemed to come alive. Maybe he bolted on a better set of tyres. He was fighting back through the field, and then he came across Russell Ingall. there was several laps of Skaife trying to get past. He finally got down the inside of Ingall going into the hairpin. Then the incident that everyone remembered. It probably looks worse now when you watch it even. Ingall just turns into him in a straight line and spins him around. What happened next though? Skaife stands there and waits till Ingall came back around, waves his fist at him, and Ingall drives across the track kind of at him. They weren't that close, but geez, at the time you're like, a bit of a storm in the teacup. When you look at it now in our super cotton wool occupational health and safety world, you kind of go, geez. I'd hate to think what would happen to the drivers with social media and stuff if this kind of thing happened these days. Not a good look for Ingall there. Time has definitely. If anything, I think this incident looks a lot worse these days than what it did at the time. And this is granted, I was a big Skaife fan at the time, but I'm not an Ingall fan. I quite like Russell and his views and whatever. This just the optics of this were not good, Russ. Once the safety car pulled in from the Skaife Ingall incident, obviously because Skaife's car was stranded on the side of the track, Ambrose just took off and Bright was behind him. The rain actually started coming down hard and Brighty closed up the gap. But some old friends, Bernard and Simon Wills, they spun just trying to get into the pit lane, trying to change their tyres. They were just going down the straight line and just hit water and spun around. So the safety car was called out once again. The rain got worse under the safety car, so the race was called and Marcus Ambrose was the 2003 Supercars champion. That was his first championship. The race results ended up being Ambrose in first, Bright in second, Max Wilson, if anyone remembers him, in third, Craig Lowndes in fourth, and Garth Tander in fifth. So that is my retro race review. If you want to watch this race in full, or both the races, they are on the Supercars YouTube channel. Check it out. There is some great content on there. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments, and I can do some more over time, because it's quite fun watching these old races and sitting there and taking notes as though it is a race that's currently happening. So until next time, I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.